Could you tell us your name?
My name is Joshua Rogers. I'm married to my beautiful wife, Rebecca Rogers. She's one of the deacon leaders. I myself am a deacon leader here also. We have 4 beautiful children. We're a blended family, so we have 3 beautiful girls. My hands are full. 2 of which are her daughters from a previous marriage, and I have a daughter from my previous marriage, and we have a little boy together. I like to go fishing. I don't do it as much as I like, but I'm actually in a season of service right now. I guess if you want to call service a hobby. My walk has been a very interesting walk. I didn't always know the Lord, and I always knew He was there, but I didn't necessarily need Him at the time, especially growing up, because there was just so much turmoil in my life growing up. I didn't really have much of a childhood. I didn't really have a really good home example either. So by the time I started growing up and getting older into my own ways, I didn't really have a whole lot of guidance as far as what the right path would be to take. I allowed Hollywood and other influences like that, social media and everything else, to tell me what it would mean to be a successful person in this world. I skipped out of school. I was really into the partying scene, and a lot of drugs came early on, and alcohol and everything else came early on in my life, and just chasing a lot of temporal peace, a lot of temporal joy. When I got older, I tended to take that same mindset, mentality with me as I grew up, working my way up the ladder in certain companies and whatnot. I became a operations manager for a warehouse. I was making really good money. So I told myself, okay, I needed to build my own kingdom in a sense, right? Just be able to check off the boxes of what this world means to be happy, or what it means to be a man, or whatever it is that means that you're a successful person. So I went and I married a woman at 25, bought my first house. I didn't stop at the house. I got the cars and turned my garage into like a man cave / car garage / bar / part. So my house was just always about entertaining and just having the latest things. If I had a nice big flat screen TV and everything else, just always filling this giant God-sized hole in my heart with all this material stuff to be able to try, like I said, build that kingdom, build something bigger than myself, right? Because I had something to prove. Right, I came from nothing, but I needed to make sure that everybody knew that I was better than that. Right? So I had something to prove. So you finally get all this stuff, which is great, and you have, but then after a while, it just becomes that stuff, and then you have to get more, and then you're trying to. It's kind of like an addiction, if I could put it that way. You're always chasing the next best thing, because once you get there, you're feeling so good about it, and then it comes and then it goes, just like that. So people would come over, they eat my food, they would drink my wine and everything else, and they would leave. And then that would still leave me at home with a very disgruntled wife. Kind of grew tired of each other, especially there was no real love connection, it was all lust. So we were just kind of going through the motions. So with that being said, and when no one else is looking, it was really hard. It was very, very small increments that led to bigger and bigger things. Dissatisfaction in one another. So my ex at the time started seeing other people. Then I in turn started seeing other people. Now we're chasing that fulfillment again, but now looking outside of a relationship, outside the home. Before we know it, it went from dissatisfaction all the way to distrust, to where we ended up at the end was just total separation, collapse of the home. I remember sitting in this church, sitting there in the pew, and I wish I could remember what song it was. And I remember just sitting there and just meditating and just thinking, this is the last place I want to be right now. Now I'm at the point where I'm divorced. We sold our house. I'm living back in my parents' house again. Whatever last minute things I think that are still precious to me that are going to help me rebuild my kingdom again are sitting in storage that I'm probably I ended up losing. It was at that moment when I literally felt the hand on my shoulder. I felt him, he's like, are you done? And I just started crying, this soul cleansing, deep cry. I probably will never cry like that again. And the tears were just they were just pouring down my face. And it was just this cleansing moment. I just realized God is real, and He's been right there this entire time. And I was like, okay, Lord, I don't know what this means, but okay, I'm done. So many years of pain, so many years of doing things the wrong way and just going against the grain this entire time. I was finally done. Started serving in church, started getting to know some of the ushers there. I'm trying to figure out, okay, well, I just knew I wanted to be at church more. I was kind of having a debate with God, and I told Him, I said, okay, all right, God, I'm gonna give you 3 weeks. And He heard me. There was a conversation my grandmother had with me about getting me a Bible. And sure enough, there it was sitting on that bed, still in the package, nice big thick NIV, a study Bible with the footnotes and everything. And it was just sitting there calling me. He said, okay. And at that moment, I knew the Lord was like, okay, I got you for 3 weeks. The first thing that I felt the Spirit, and that was the first time I had this connection with the Spirit, is like, read the book of Isaiah. I've not even heard of this book before, but okay. So there it was. And in those 3 weeks, that book is just so amazing. It's like a mini Bible in itself, right? It has 66 chapters. And basically, even the first 2 chapters is really highlighting my life entirely. And just God just telling me, like, this is you, this is where I'm going to take you, and this is where I want you to be. I went and picked the highest peak in the neighborhood I could find, and I hiked it, looking at the world from completely different eyes now. I had been awakened from the Spirit, and God just came rushing into my life. So now at this point in my life, the Lord brought my wife and I together, in our own way, and that's a whole other story. But with that being said, when we came together, we got married, and there was a lot of, I guess you can say, like, intense family moments, whatnot. My wife and I started off fresh. We started off on our own. We got our own little apartment with our 4 little kids, and we crammed everybody in a 2-bedroom apartment. I was barely making anything at this point, but I just kept having to trust in the Lord. I said, okay, well, this is our life now with you, and I just have to keep going. We would get down to the point where we would be eating just like tortillas, beans, and rice, and it was just like, this is not what I wanted. And I'm just kind of like, come on, God, you promised me a better life than this, right? But you asked me if I'm done, I'm done. So here I am. So I'm going to just continue to push forward. It may not be the same lavish home that I had before, and I don't have all those things. But at the same time, when it comes down to it, as long as we've been following the Lord, He's shown us that He is the sole provider. That there's nothing that we can do on our own that we can prosper from, that unless we're leaning heavily on Him, then we have nothing. He's there every step of the way, and He provides. As soon as that refrigerator gets a little empty, somehow or another, boom, it's full again. Lord, I don't know how I'm going to get to work the next few days because I have no gas. Well, something comes up, and He fills the tank. But when you have God in it, and you can actually put your trust in Him, and it's the hardest thing to do because your flesh so badly wants to be in control. But if you can actually lay your worries down like He asks you to and give it to Him, the joy and the peace that comes from knowing that you have a living God that has your best interest in mind and loves your children more than you do, it's pretty amazing. There's the only other way I can explain to be able to experience that is to just do it. Because there's no other way to really experience it. It's amazing. I wouldn't change it for the world, honestly, because I know that the things He has in store for us coming up are going to be far more than what I ever imagined. And if we just sit back and let Him take control, then we can focus on our relationship, our children, the things around us, the people, the connections that we make, being selfless and looking at other people's needs, because come to find out, somebody else has it worse than you do. And there is something that God put in your path, your ability to do something about that, to help somebody in the same season that you used to be in. But now you're in this new season. Even though you may not think it's the best, you're actually 100 steps further than where you were when you began. So especially in this season of my wife and I not knowing exactly how we're going to put food on the table, I remember when the Lord brought us to University Church. We found our first service here at church was Wednesdays at Lucy's, serving the students here at church. Service wasn't really on my heart. It was always about me, right? How can I find somebody to serve my needs? Or how can I serve my own? But being able to serve the students and watch them come in, hungry and tired and just, beat from studies and everything else, and being able to sit there and serve them really kind of started warming on my heart what it means to be selfless, to be able to put others first. But come to find out also is that towards the end of it, there's just the Lord blessed it, there's an abundance of food sometimes, and it needs to go somewhere, and that was how we were actually able to feed ourselves. The Lord had a way to be able to bless us for the next week. We would be gifted these leftovers, so my family was basically surviving on these leftovers. That was very humbling for myself, but it was just another way God showing that how much He provides in ways that you wouldn't exactly think possible. So we served, and we did that for about a year. Somebody thought we'd make great deacons, and we signed up and started ushering, and that became our family. And that service just turned into family, which turned into love for our church community, and actually gave us that heart of service to be able to give back. So it was through all this service that we were doing that we were able to really see God working in the background, if you will, and Him showing Himself to us, and how faithful He is and generous He is with His love. Really put on my heart to really want to be able to know Him more. I wanted to make space for Him in my heart. There's really nothing else that I want to do now, is just continue to follow Him and see what more He has in store for me, and what more I can do for Him, because He paid a price that we can never repay. And with that being said, I owe Him everything, and that's just me.